Secretary of State Mike Pompeo says human trafficking remains a problem in almost every corner of the world. This as the State Department unveils its annual report on trafficking this week and recognizes advocates who are helping in the fight. Secretary Mike Pompeo and presidential advisor Ivanka Trump honored 10 individuals from around the world dedicated to combating modern-day slavery. Pompeo vowing the U.S. is also committed to the fight.
Human traffic is a global problem, but it's a local one too. Human trafficking can be found in a favorite restaurant, a hotel, downtown, a farm, or in their neighbor's home.
Pompeo releasing the State Department's annual Trafficking in Persons report. It ranks governments based on their efforts to eliminate forced labor, sexual slavery, or sexual exploitation. The secretary says among the countries demoted to Tier 3, the lowest category, was Myanmar, also known as Burma.
Burma's armed forces and others in the Rakhine state dislocated hundreds of thousands of Rohingya and members of other ethnic groups, many of whom were exploited through the region as a result. Some in the Burmese military also recruited child soldiers and subjected adults and children from ethnic minority groups to forced labor.
Other countries with Tier 3 status include China, North Korea, and Iran. Those countries could be penalized with sanctions, including the withholding of non-humanitarian aid. One glaring absence to the State Department's presentation, a lack of an ambassador at large for combating trafficking in persons. The former ambassador says it's important to fill that vacancy.
The idea that an ambassador can go out and meet with heads of state, can meet with the foreign ministers, speaks with a certain legal imprimatur of the president and the government, that's important.
The next ambassador at large will likely be briefed on one of the biggest findings in this year's report, which is that children removed from their families and placed in institutional care are at greater risk of being trafficked. Joining me now for more analysis is John Gizzi, White House correspondent for Newsmax. John, welcome back to the program.
Glad to be here, Wyatt. Thank you.
The Trump administration is likely to get some pushback on this report, especially that last point that I mentioned, especially because of its enforcement on that zero tolerance policy, in which kind of separated 2,000 migrants, children from their families. Is that a fair comparison, this human trafficking, to what's going on at the border?
No, and remember something. The separation that's going on in the border comes after people determine the children are not the offspring of the people bringing them over, and that certainly is going to be enforced after the last executive order. In the cases that were in this report, this is government policy to separate children and traffic, the most abominable cases being, as the commentator previously said, North Korea, China, and Iran. On the other hand, the report also hailed governments in 14 countries for working to alleviate this problem, among them Estonia, Bahrain, and Argentina. This is different comparing what is a result of people coming to something that's the official policy of governments and which it countenances.
Okay, so we'll continue to watch the human trafficking situation, but I want to ask you also about one other top priority for President Trump, of course, that we've been covering this week, and that's finding the replacement for Justice Anthony Kennedy.
Why does that surprise me you brought that up?
Yeah, exactly. It's only the biggest news story, right? So what do you think is going to be the most important for the president in choosing Kennedy's successor?
Well, I think obviously someone who is going to live up to the promises that he made in the third debate with Hillary Clinton, in which he became the first presidential candidate in history to say that his court would overturn Roe v. Wade and return the abortion issue to the states. No one has said that before who's been a major party nominee, and many believe it was key to the kind of support he had that put him over the top. In addition, youth is going to be important. There's many qualified jurists over the age of 60. Unofficially, that's the administration's cutoff point because they want a justice who will be there for a long time.
And of course, this pick has great implications. It could change the whole makeup of the court, change things for decades to come. What do you think the confirmation process will be like? Anticipate a big battle, basically?
Spirited, tumultuous, turbulent. I could come up with some other adjectives if you need them. No, the fact is that confirmations in the modern era are becoming the subjects of campaigns, not unlike a presidential campaign, to some not unlike blood sport. We certainly saw this around the nomination of Neil Gorsuch, and around George W. Bush's appointees, Justices Roberts and Alito. Interesting that when President Obama named Justices Sotomayor and Kagan, there was very little opposition from the other side, and Republicans, in fact, in fairly large numbers, voted for Justice Sotomayor because they found no compelling reason or scandal about her, different standards that are there. My guess is that if the nominee the president puts forth is well-spoken in the hearings, demonstrates an understanding of the law, and gives the impression that he or she would be a fair arbiter of any case that came in front of them, much as John Roberts did when he was named, no campaign is going to change the inevitability of confirmation.
We'll be watching. John Gizzi, White House correspondent for Newsmax. Thanks so much for your analysis, sir.
Thanks for having me, Wyatt.